Hmm. Okay, we'll see how this camera does. All new technology here, so yeah.
Hey, that's a lot fancier classroom than I ever had.
Yeah. We're down in Summerfield Hall, which is kind of near, fairly close to the field house. So it's a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had some engineering classes there before I switched to journalism.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. This camera is being kind of strange. So what I'm going to do is just use the laptop camera. Let me switch that around here.
Whatever is easy.
Okay. Thanks everyone for bearing with the tech issues today. All right. That's at least better than having that camera going and out. So.
It works great.
All right. So, yeah, all of our three groups have been working and researching different goals. And I wondered if each of you would have at least one person could share the goals that your group's working on, and maybe just a couple of highlights or things that you learned from your research that have been really interesting so far. Seek success. How about you guys?
Okay.
Yeah.
So our main goals are working on like kind of redesign the book covers, kind of update them a little bit, make them more modern with like what's happening currently in society. And I guess just like researching like what audiences are looking for in order to, I guess, make the most of your sales. Just like, I guess, relaunching your books maybe. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, love it.
What are, like, from the interviews you've done or the survey or anything that you've done with secondary research, what are a couple of things that maybe stand out so far, or things you discovered?
I think just like maybe as far as like, I think maybe like making, obviously they're all their own individual books, but like making them like a little bit more cohesive in how they are marketed, I guess, and just so that they're, I don't know, if you research one, like the rest are going to come up. Another thing that we've been looking at is, I guess we'll ask you about that later, but what are you saying? Just making them like have an overall kind of a unison with the books, like whether it's like the same font in them or something that you can tell like we're all from the same author, even if they're all like different type of like a genre and different, what they're made for is different, but that way they can tell they're all made by you. That way I can say like one person loves Black Design and then they see Smart Money and like recognize kind of like the cover of it. They're like, oh wait, who just wrote that? And stuff like that.
That's a cool idea.
And you all have had an opportunity to actually interview some book cover designers, kind of like you were saying. And
yeah, we have two girls in our group that are like more of our design oriented, and they've been meeting. They're actually in a meeting right now with a book cover designer and just like kind of getting their input on, I guess, just like their process of creating book covers and their goals when they're doing it, just to like be a little bit more familiar with how that all works and like as far as like publishing and stuff like that goes.
Yeah, well, and even feel free to get a proposal from the book cover designer. We might even use them.
Okay.
then the
Thank you.
Out.
Oh, yeah.
It's out right now.
Yes, we sent out a survey, and we have a focus group coming up next week. Mm-hmm. Just kind of getting some feedback on, I guess, we have like the book section into, I guess, certain different target audiences. Yes. So we have for Life by Design, we have like the younger demographic, like 21 to 34 years old, like post grad. looking for jobs, maybe have like an entry-level job. And when we're looking at like our surveys, we have some sent out in California, it's in the California area to get some information more in that demographic area. And then we have some in Kansas City, obviously, kind of see the difference there. And we have the same thing for the other 4 novels books. And it's the 35 to 55 demographic, people that are actively like having jobs, and some of them have children, like that type of demographic that are family oriented.
Great.
Perfect. Flying squirrels, you guys want to share about your research and what you're working on?
Yeah, so we kind of have 3 main goals that we have gotten squared away. So one of our main goals is just updating your digital presence, which is mostly your website, kind of making that a little bit more cohesive, and really focusing on your life by design. And then another goal with your life by design is positioning that closer toward your target audience, and kind of playing with some of the wording to really identify who your target audience is, and good ways to market that. And then one of the really big things that we wanted to touch on was positioning you as a thought leader on LinkedIn, getting your presence on LinkedIn a little bit higher, and just getting some blog posts posted about your books, maybe some like micro posts about snippets of your book, and how they've impacted you. And yeah, and we wanted to use your LinkedIn to drive people to that new website.
That's super cool. Thank you.
One of the things you guys have been thinking about too is with your life by design, there's already a lot of content there, obviously. So answering the question of like, how can we repurpose some of that content or maybe repackage it in a way to meet different audiences, depending on like what their preferred needs of communication or receiving that information would be. You guys did a focus group last week, right?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah. And we got a lot of good information about that, and kind of what people thought of the website, who we think the target audience is, what they think they would like to see from the website. We didn't really go through the book much, but there was definitely a lot of good insights about how to update the website and what they want to see.
That's awesome. Well, just so you know, there are no sacred cows here. Those websites are really old, and I know there's lots of opportunities to improve them. So any and all feedback is welcome.
Annabelle, would you be willing to share too kind of what you guys were talking about with that one of the target audiences maybe being that kind of like few years out of school group of people they've been working for a little while and they're starting to think about some more of those life goals?
Yeah, we kind of thought that the target audience was closer to what he was saying, where it's like they've kind of gotten their footing in their career. They're not exactly sure like, how far they want to go, but they kind of have the idea of like, okay, like got my first job, what do I do next? And they've kind of begun to maybe get married or have kids. So it's kind of closer to like what your life by design kind of mentions.
And yeah, part of the idea with that is just how that group is really thinking about a lot of that anyway. And so they're kind of primed for a lot of the ideas and the content that are in the book.
That's great.
And then Rock Chalk Studios, you guys want to share what you're working on?
Yeah. So like some of our main goals are obviously to kind of increase your digital presence. So that's like by kind of like looking at your website, what needs to change on your website to be more efficient, to communicate your books better, looking at your social media, what can you do to improve that? What are some of the best practices we can give to you, as well as kind of just create a manageable promotional strategy for not only your books, but also for yourself as an author. So through that, we've done surveys about how people interact with authors in their digital presence. So what that looks like for their website, what people want on their website, what is good information for consumers, how people interact with authors on social media, as well as we've talked to a lot of industry professionals just about things in PR, digital marketing, what they kind of suggest their best practices are, and just some of the things that we can offer to you to kind of just improve that overall presence and create a promotional strategy.
This is all very, very professional. I'm very impressed.
And each of the groups have talked to at least one author, and some have talked to a couple. But what were some of the things like that you guys have learned about with your either your secondary research or primary research about like how some of the most effective authors out there, like what kind of content they're producing, or like how they're presenting their overall personal brand?
Yeah, so kind of going off what one of the other groups said, when we were talking with people, and especially like people kind of like the self-help or people who work in digital marketing, what they were suggesting is like promoting you as kind of like a thought leader. So some of that content would be, you know, giving more practical advice, writing blogs about things that are happening in everyday life, you know, and then you can attribute that information to the book, be like, if you want to learn more, like, here's some of the other resources we can give you, other content, just being more engaging. If you guys have anything to add, things of that nature. Just kind of coming up with a more cohesive branding for becoming a thought leader. So talking about the wording you want to use, hitting on some of the focuses you're more interested on, that you'd be more interested in promoting about yourself, things of that nature.
I love it.
And was it you guys that were talking when you were interviewing Bill about he was kind of asking questions about like, who do you think Curtis is? What is Curtis's personal brand? Like, do you want to share what Bill said? And
yeah, so when we were talking to Bill and kind of just questioning like, oh, who do you think Curtis is? He said that you are a man of many core values. And so he hit on, that's kind of like a theme throughout your book. So even in your financial books, it's not about getting rich quick. It's about, here's some core values you can incorporate into your life in order to have financial security, things of that nature. And that's reflected also in kind of your more religious leaning books.
I love that. That's a great insight. Thank you.
but yeah, that was, I think, helpful for thinking about, even though each book, it kind of stands on its own, but thinking about what is the through line with all of the books. And one of those things is you and your story, obviously, and those core values that you have. So.
Yeah, that's again, a very, very good insight. I never even thought about that. So thank you.
Yeah. Curtis, is there anything that you would add to that? Like, does that assessment sound right? Or is there anything you would tweak or add, or what do you think about your own kind of personal brand?
Yeah, no, I think that's very much in line with, you know, who I am and what's important to me. And, you know, it's a differentiator in the marketplace, certainly in Los Angeles. So I think leaning into that is really a great strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, yeah, that every group has been thinking about too is, you know, this space where it's like the motivational, you know, genre of books. There's obviously it's a crowded space with a lot of different authors and personalities and people with different advice and different approaches. And so they've been thinking about, you know, what is it that your books can offer that other books may not offer. And so part of that is, yeah, how do we distinguish you and figure out, you know, what are some of the really most compelling things about your story that would maybe interest people to pick up one of the books, and then as they get into the books more, maybe then they're hearing some more of the practical advice and wisdom that you've shared there.
Yeah, no, I like that. And just one thing to think about is, my goal is not for these books necessarily to become New York Times bestsellers. Obviously, if they did, that'd be amazing. But the primary use of the books is to engage people that I've already met in person. So as an example, we do a lot of CEO and entrepreneur dinners. So we had a dinner with 15 people last night, and so a lot of these people I'm meeting for the first time, and I don't spend much time talking about me or the books at the event. But today we send out a thank you email to everyone that came to the dinner, and we invite them, to select any of the books that they want, and we'll send them an e-version of the book. So maybe what would be interesting is even just sending you a copy of that email that we send out to people, just to think about, how to position the books better. Because at this point, we just kind of say, here are the 5 books, pick whichever one you want. But, maybe there's a link or something like that. So if you think that'd be helpful, I'd be happy to share an example of that email, just in terms of like practically, how am I promoting the books in the fashion that I'm using them most often. And then another idea that came to mind is, to the extent that the goal is to get people to engage in these books, one of the things that I think is popular in social media is like, having people score themselves. And so to the extent that there's any way that we can leverage the scorecards within the books, there's the 3 scorecards within the Smart Money book. And one of the Smart Money book scorecards is Your Life by Design. So that one can really easily be ported over to the Your Life by Design book. And then there's also the scorecard in Celebration of Life. So just in terms of social media, are there any strategies where we might, as part of this engagement campaign, encourage people to take the scorecards, or even use the various questions in the scorecards, as a way to like, hey, how do you think you rate? Compare yourself to your peers, something like that. So that's just another thought that is kind of a differentiator, because I don't think many books have scorecards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what do you all think about doing something like that? Or have you seen anything in your research where like other authors or other personalities on social media are like engaging people in different ways, whether it's through like could be a scorecard or just even like questions that invite people into the conversation?
Even with like the author that we talked to, Michael, he's super active on Twitter with like daily questions of like something so simple as like, what books are you reading lately? Like maybe not something like a scorecard where they're necessarily like, rate my book or like rate yourself through my book. But yeah, he's definitely like engaging with his audience daily.
Yeah, so part of his personal brand is just having that accessibility and knowing that readers can interact with him, like just reach out and he's gonna respond to them like that day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
I wish I had that time.
Yeah, right.
Here's some of like our research we found. We haven't necessarily like looked on social media, but there is something that is appealing to audiences about interaction and stuff. So it's like a lot of times you'll see, especially with like motivational books, you'll see like a journal that goes along with it, or you'll see things of that aspect where people can work along with it. And so I feel like the scorecards are kind of your way of doing that. And so I don't know, social media would be like a good way to kind of showcase that your website too. So there's definitely something to be said there that is appealing for people in order to get engagement.
I think.
Yeah, let's keep brainstorming. I think that's a really good approach.
Yeah, I think one thing that's important with your books too, Curtis, is word of mouth and just like, so either people that know you personally, or like you were saying before, kind of like those could be those second degree connections, people that are connected to people and so if the books are recommended or referred by like a friend of theirs, then that gives it so much more credibility than if they were just seeing like an advertisement. And so I think that's part of it, is like increasing just the word of mouth and encouraging people to share, and like equipping your connections and empowering them with like the content that they need to be able to share through their channels and through their networks. So that might be another thing to think about a lot, is like what kind of content could be created that would be like easily shareable, or invite people into that process.
I love that idea. I think there's a really big opportunity to leverage that.
A lot of you like did research kind of specifically looking at Los Angeles and that community, like in your secondary research. What were some things that stood out to you all that maybe were good takeaways for knowing about how like Los Angeles might be different than some other areas in the country, or similar in some ways? What did you find?
This might be like kind of niche, but one of the things that I found when I was like researching the environment was just that not only Los Angeles, but pretty much like a lot of the West Coast is like heavily populated with it's just a very diverse population, and there's like many languages that are spoken. And so I guess like one of the things that we've just been thinking about is like how we can also reach the like people who I guess say English isn't their first language, or just like so that they can connect with I guess your books as if you're like, because you might be different from them. And so one of the things that we had talked about, and we're not for sure about it on yet, but just like the idea of maybe like creating an audiobook that could also maybe, I don't know, be, that could be presented in different languages, just to also build that connection with non-English speaking individuals.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. And if in your research you can find any resources to help create audiobooks, I've literally been trying to find someone or some company that helps create audiobooks, because I would love to do that.
Perfect.
Yeah, did you have some?
I don't think we really touched on LA that much. But I thought just for marketing, like in your local area, I don't know if you've discussed your books or presented them like at your local church or home church, but I feel like that would be a great way to like kind of keep on going with like word of mouth, like spread it by word of mouth, because if one person picks it up, reads it, loves it, like, and he'll share it with blah, blah, blah. But I feel like just going to your local home church and kind of discussing your books and putting it out there would be also another great one to market.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And we have done that, and we have spoken to other churches in the area. So yeah, thank you for that idea. That's a good one.
I can have a follow-up question to that. After doing some research more on your history and background, I wasn't able to find too much about your public speaking experience. So is there any way that you could maybe just give a brief overview of the public speaking that you've done, and then perhaps if you'd be willing to do some like small scale speaking and engagements in the future?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm always happy to do that. I've probably given I don't know, 50 talks to groups between 50 and 10,000 people over the years. I haven't done a ton of talks since COVID, but prior to that, several every year. In addition to, various churches, most of it has been in the financial services industry. So lots of, talks across the country to various offices, just on the topic of leading your life by design as a complement to having, a great financial plan. You also want to have a great life plan. And we've probably, done, yeah, I'd say on average, 4 to 6 of those talks every year. And of course, happy to do more of those.
Okay, yeah, the reason I kind of asked was that I was able to look at some of the reviews that are on Amazon already for Your Life by Design specifically, and it was 44%, so almost half of the reviews had said that they had heard you speak, which had drawn them to your book. And so I just figured that that might be a really good way as well to get the word out, since so many people are finding you through public speaking events.
No, it's a great idea. Very creative.
And Curtis, at those, like at any of the bigger events that you've spoken at, have you talked about your books, or is it have been more kind of like focused on the financial services industry, and then people find out about you because they hear about your name, or how does that typically work?
Yeah, it's probably half and half. I mean, a lot of the talks are specifically, hey, can you come talk about, your life by design, or can you talk about family first? So half are, they're having me speak around industry topics, and the books are peripheral. And the other half are, hey, can you talk specifically about this book and how we can apply it in this context?
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting, though, like having the exact percentage saying like, yeah, almost half of the people who left reviews are people who were like first introduced to Curtis at these events.
Right, which seems to kind of also be a trend with your genre of book in general. Competitors that I've done research on, they're really big into public speaking, and even just comparing to their reviews, it's very similar of how people kind of find out about them. So yeah, I just thought that was an interesting insight and something that could push kind of the knowledge of you and your books further.
Yeah, and along those lines, one of the things that I think we talked about last time is just this idea of, relaunching the books and actually doing a formal book launch for them. A good friend of mine just published her second book, and she did a book talk and book signing at Barnes and Nobles here in Los Angeles. And so I think there's really an opportunity to come out with a second edition or a fifth edition or whatever of each of these books, and as part of this awesome work that you're doing, use it as a platform to relaunch them. And oftentimes, when there is a new edition of a book, that's an easy hook to say, oh, okay, well, let's have Curtis talk because he's relaunching the next edition of this book. So that would be an interesting idea to explore further as part of an overall, campaign to do more speaking and get the books out more broadly. So I love that idea.
You all are doing a focus group. Is it this next week or?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you want to say something about that? Tell Curtis a bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess basically our whole goal, and we've looked at like other authors who are in your genre who are very successful. And I guess we just have been looking to see like what we can learn from them that they have done as far as like design goes of their covers, or maybe how they marketed their books and
Kind of like best practice.
yeah, their best practices. So, and just kind of learn from them and see how we can bring that into launching your books. And so I think our focus group next week, you just kind of get a more focus on like from an audience perspective, like what they enjoy as far as like what they're looking for when they're looking for a self-help book.
And like what covers they're drawn to, like some of our creative people that aren't here right now, like did some mock-up covers that we're gonna show to our people in the focus group. See what they like, what they would change, and some of them just like see what the audience really thinks.
That's great. I'm really excited to hear that. Thank you.
That's one thing too, where the, like some of the AI tools and the bringing those into this class are really helpful, because it makes it a lot easier to mock up, you know, different ideas for book covers, and even for like other kind of collateral that could be a part of a book launch.
Yep.
I mean, one of the things I'm wondering is like, can you even use some of these AI graphic programs to literally, create a new book cover, from scratch, like not even use it as a mock-up, but actually come up with a final, design that we could just use immediately.
Yeah, I think that's kind of audience wise, what we're looking to hear back from the focus group is kind of giving the example covers that we've made, and then taking the best parts from all of the covers. And then also our two designers have talked to multiple other cover designers, and then adding that information from them, kind of just mixing it all to hopefully get a final product that combines the two.
That's super cool. Yeah, I love that. And what's great is all of these are self-published on Amazon. So like we literally could, change the covers overnight. So whatever you come up with, it'd be very easy to incorporate your ideas. And of course, we want to give you thank you.
Yeah, another thing that we.
Bill?
Yes, we talked to Bill, an author in class. One thing that he brought up that we didn't really realize was how important subtitles are on the covers of your books, and like how they are worded, because so many people find books just by what words are used in the subtitles, kind of like that's, you search one word about a book and just so that it comes up. And so one thing that we were wondering is if you would be open to kind of
Like a revamping of the subtitles.
Sure. Yeah. I am. The answer is yes.
Yeah, and that would, I feel like the subtitles would be chosen kind of through some keyword research, so it would have research to back it up. It wouldn't just be something that we thought kind of sounded better.
Right.
But with doing that, I think that could really help the books just become more,
yeah, like findable, or just like
yeah.
be more exposed when
Right.
people are searching
Yeah.
for books.
Mhm.
That's a great idea. I love that.
And Curtis, one of the things that this grant money has enabled us to do is give the students paid access to a keyword SEO tool. And so it can actually, gives them access to a dashboard where they can then do research on your existing content, like what's on your existing websites. And it can analyze keywords there, and it can also look at competitors' keywords to see like what are other authors, what words are they using, that they then become connected to. And when people do a Google search for those terms, how well did they rank in those search results?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Have you guys have you done anything yet with that one, or?
No.
Okay.
No, we didn't wanna
Yeah.
put too much work into it in case Yeah,
Yeah,
Gotcha,
we were kind
yeah.
of doing cover focus first, and then we also wanted to make sure that it was something that would be okay with you before we went ahead and spent too much time on it, but.
What other specific questions do you all have, pertaining to your research or things you're wondering about?
I mean, I guess a question we would have to be, because we also want to focus on your LinkedIn. And we were thinking about creating a separate LinkedIn account for like your author side of your life versus, so it's not mixed all into one, so it's like easier to find. But I guess like just random what we were supposed to be, like, I don't know, I guess we're trying to figure out like what your brand voice should be on your new LinkedIn for like your author side of things, but we don't really dove into that too deep yet. But would you be open to creating a new LinkedIn? Or like a separate one? Not
Sure.
I think like what our research found is.
Yeah, I mean, if it makes sense.
Yeah, like with our research, what it's found is like people go to someone's social media for one focus. So it's like if you have too many focuses or too many, I guess what you're presenting, then people aren't gonna be interested or they're gonna get confused and they'll leave. So it's better to create kind of like, almost like professional LinkedIn. So if it's like, I wanna make a LinkedIn specifically for my books, then that's better than having it all combined in like one LinkedIn as with, along with your like wealth management career. If that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know if there's compliance issues around that. So that's the only thing that I'm not sure about. But let's explore it, and if there's a compelling reason to do it, I'm all in.
Yeah, that's a good finding in your research though, because I know on LinkedIn you can like connect with people if they're just like peers or colleagues or people that you know professionally, but then also you can follow different thought leaders and personalities out there. For those of you that are focusing on like your life by design, is there anything else about that book that you're wondering about specifically, or I mean, you read through it fully?
Yeah, I guess, I don't know if this is directly related to your life by design, but we were just wondering how open you were to writing some blog posts or maybe preparing some, tweets, Facebook posts, LinkedIn posts in advance so we could schedule. I understand you're very busy and you kind of want to be hands off, but those are some things that I think you can take some time out of your day to do and maybe plan ahead so you won't have to worry about it, every single day. But just how open are you to that?
Yeah, I'd probably have somebody on my team do it. Or if you thought there were, examples, like, here's 10 examples that we would suggest, that'd be welcome too. Because I think you're more in touch with what would be of interest than I am. And so if you said, hey, here's 10 blog posts that would capture my attention, that'd be super helpful.
And I guess like in addition to that, do you have any sort of email newsletter or any kind of direct connection with your, audience or people that are engaged in buying your books?
We don't do anything specifically for the books. Obviously, for all of our clients, we do, and there's a regular stream of posts from the financial planning side, but nothing specifically for the books. I mean, one of the things that I think is is a really big opportunity is as we update the websites, make sure that we're able to capture the information of the people who, want to download the first section of the book, or if they'd like to be part of a newsletter, because I think it'd be very easy to repurpose a lot of the content to easily create a newsletter. So I'm totally open to any suggestions there.
Also, just to clarify, like, how separated do you want your, career life as an author and your career life as a financial planner to be? Like, do you want it to be hand in hand? Do you want people to read your books to go look you up on your, Northwestern Mutual website or whatever it may be? Or do you want it to be kind of two separate entities?
I think it's important to have them connected. And so in an ideal world, there would be, kind of a natural flow back and forth. But it doesn't have to be, what I find is that the best form of selling is not selling. So my focus at, like the dinner that we had last night, it's all about relationship building. And so I would think the goal with, anything promotional from the book's perspective is, how can we build a relationship with the reader? But at the end of the day, to the extent that there is at least, by the way, if you are interested in, financial planning or whatever, that would be part of it, but just not an overt or in your face part of the connection between the two.
Something I feel like you were talking about the blogs, which I think is a really good idea, as well, because I think that with blog posts on a website, there's ways to kind of include some information from the book and then kind of link your book as well. So then if people don't have time to read the full book, but they can sit and read, a few paragraph blog posts and they enjoy what they're reading, I feel that that would make them more likely to then see the links to the book and say, oh, well, now I want to know more. And it could even be like financial information and then link it to the Smart Money book or something along those lines. I have some research there from competitors, and that's something that has been really useful in their practices. So just thought I'd throw that out there.
The other thing with
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, that is also extremely helpful from an SEO, search engine optimization perspective, because think about all those important keywords that you'll be including if you have some excerpts from the book, plus some additional ones that you maybe add in.
Right. If someone was taken to your blog by a search, then that would kind of automatically take them to your book, even if they weren't looking for it, which is awesome.
And so Curtis, kind of go back to what Blake was asking about too. I'm just curious as far as your team and like knowing about their bandwidth and how much they would be able to do, like what would be realistic in terms of like how often an e-newsletter could go out if that was a recommendation, or how often a blog post could be created, like on a weekly basis, bi-weekly, on a monthly, like, I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
I would say certainly on a monthly basis, potentially bi-weekly, weekly. It's how much time does it take? Like if there's a template that we use and it's literally just, pulling a couple sentences, from a chapter and putting it in the template. If the total time is, 5 minutes, then we can do a lot more of them. If it's 30 minutes, it won't be always.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I think, and maybe one of the things that the groups could look into is seeing how do other authors approach that, and you know, maybe it's something where, there's almost like a bank, a content bank, of like different topic areas from the books or different sections and excerpts that could be like, almost like prepackaged, ready to go. It would just be a matter of like posting it at a certain time. So it's like your team would already have that content. It would just be, they would just be the ones actually like hitting, you know, the button to post it at a recommended time. So Curtis, can you still hear us?
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
This question?
No, yeah, any other questions that you guys can think of? Okay. Curtis, anything else from your end? Anything that would just be good for the students to know, or any developments in your life or networks or people that you're connecting with that would be helpful to know about?
I would just say that first and foremost, I'm super impressed with the work you're doing. This is amazing. I'm very, very grateful and very interested in putting into practice as many of your ideas as possible, and eager to credit you in additions of the book for your contribution. So know that this really means a lot to me. It's you know, kind of left field, but we are doing a lot in this longevity space, and so I don't know, you know, if there's anything to do as it relates to that, but there's just so much interest in the longevity world right now, and we're having a lot of fun there, and we're building a new community around an anti-retirement club. Just this idea of the fact that, you know, people are potentially living a lot longer than, you know, we ever imagined before, you know, well past 100, even to 110 or 120. And to the extent that that's the case, you know, retiring at 65 doesn't make sense if you're going to live another 50 years. So there's a lot of energy and interest around this anti-retirement club concept. And then the last thing is I'm really excited to be there in person with you in December. And I think we've got another Zoom scheduled for October 31st, just a couple weeks from now. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, if that works for you, I think we had talked about, if needed, we can bump that to, what is it, November 2nd or somewhere around there. But yeah, whenever you're available or whenever's best for you, so.
Yeah, the second tough. So if we can keep the 31st, that would be ideal.
Okay.
Free to shoot me emails or questions anytime. I mean, I don't let me be the hold up or the bottleneck on anything.
Okay, yeah, we definitely appreciate that, and just appreciate all the information you've given us thus far, and so we're excited to touch base with you here again in a couple weeks, and then of course for the presentations at the end of the semester.
Amazing. All right, well, thanks so much. Have an awesome day, and we'll talk again.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Curtis. Have a great day as well.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.